recording. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone once again. My name is Emmanuel Zaperino, and I will be assisting with the technical stuff around navigating with the WebEx platform. This is room B. Room B, and we will be holding this session with Professor Amira Osman, who will be coordinating the session. So some guidelines on how we are going to be carrying our session. I just would like to quickly give once again a reminder that the Chrome browser is recommended for the best experience with WebEx, and the password to all the rooms is ICAT 2020. Again, please use the Chrome browser for a better experience. If you are not, you still have time to switch. And the password is ICAT 2020. ICAT 2020. Please note that every participant who will present a paper will be made the presenter when they want to start, to allow them to share their screen and present. So for now, the presenters are all panelists. We'll be moving you to a presenter so that you're able to share your screen when your time comes. Only the paper presenters are considered as the panelists and will be able to speak. And for all the attending, should you have a question, please make use of the Q&A or the chat box to type your question, or raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will then unmute you to allow you to ask your question. And this is just to allow us to control the background noise and have a smooth session. So these are some of the things that we would like to underline for this session, and thank you so much. Over to you, Prof. Amira.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for your support. We really appreciate it. So I would like you to allow Jeremy Gibbert to share his screen. And Jeremy has two papers, and you have 12 minutes for each paper, Jeremy. 12 minutes and then a discussion, and then another 12 minutes and a discussion. So you may share your screen. Jeremy is muted, so we also need to unmute Jeremy. Jeremy, may I ask?
You are presenter, you should be able to unmute yourself when you want to speak.
Okay, so Jeremy, please unmute yourself. Apparently you can do that. And then for each of the speakers, please give us a bit of a background to yourself before you start.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Very clearly.
Okay, and can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. You can put it, you can, sorry, you can play your slides or put it on full screen. Wonderful, that's excellent.
Okay, thank you. My name's Jeremy Gibbert, and I'm an architect and have done work in sustainable built environments. So what I'm going to cover in the first paper is really a specification for emergency housing. It's quite a hot topic at the moment with the COVID pandemic. So what I'm going to cover is really kind of what is emergency housing, how's that classified, talk a little bit about the current situation and the program that's currently happening and has happened really since January, February this year, which was to look at de-densification, particularly for as an attempt to try and reduce infection rates in highly dense informal settlements. I'll talk through the emergency housing program. So this is what was developed by the Department of Housing some time ago, and the process that the paper looks at is it looks at this particular program, evaluates it in terms of the Sustainable Building Assessment Tool, which is an assessment tool that evaluates the sustainability of housing, and then I'll talk a little bit about the findings and conclusion. So to start off with, we need to differentiate between the different types of housing that happen immediately after a disaster. So there's emergency shelter, which can be as simple as kind of plastic sheeting or accommodation in a hall, temporary shelters, which are often tents, and then slightly longer term buildings, maybe up to 2 years, which are really for people to reestablish their lives after a major event. And that's what this paper specifically looks at. And what's interesting is that this has come to the fore recently, really since early this year, where there's been a major push by the Department of Human Settlements to look at de-densification. And there's some quite interesting programs that are happening to try and de-densify informal settlements really across South Africa. And these are some of the pictures that show some of the programs. They often consist of either tents or timber structures, and they are meant to be fairly rapid. They're meant to have been constructed in a month or 2 months. A number of them are still going on currently. And what is interesting is really the kind of the response that has happened really from a number of different areas. So these are some of the points that have come through from NGOs, think tanks within the area, really saying that de-densification may not work. There's a number of issues in terms of the people reoccupying the space that's been released. And also a major issue that's come through is that if you move people from where they're linked into other people, work opportunities, social cohesion, that can lead to a worse situation. And really that's one of the things that this paper looks at. So I'm not going to go into the detail. You can read the paper, but the emergency housing program is part 3 of the housing code, developed in 2009. So it's about 10, 11 years old. And it talks really about what are the types of provision that should be allowed for emergency housing. So it covers things like water, sanitation, access, temporary shelters, construction, what the roof covering should be, the side coverings, footings, floorings, thermal efficiency, settlement densities. And it's not very detailed. I mean, you can see thermal efficiency, it's fairly generic. It doesn't get into quantitative detail. There's very limited performance specifications. And the danger with that, obviously, is you then go to the absolute minimum. And that's, I think, why some of the current programs have been criticized, is the criticisms have been that they are going too low, that they are not really places that people would want to live in for up to 2-3 years. This is a drawing from the code, and you can see the structure, the footings, mild steel structure. But what's interesting about this is there's very little detail. So we can see the nature of the shelter, but we can't really understand what the layout may be. There's no layouts in terms of a site, and we can't really understand what's happening inside in terms of accommodation, where there's kitchens, washing areas, bathrooms, etc. So again, there's limited detail. So moving on, the tool that I used really to kind of evaluate that provision is the SBAT, which is a tool I developed a number of years ago. And it's been used quite widely in a number of different projects to evaluate housing. So these particular examples are from Zambia. And it's been fairly instrumental in trying to really look at the sustainability in terms of things like local economy, local content, etc. And the way it works is that there's a set of criteria. There's 15 criteria, 5 environmental, 5 social, 5 economic, and you measure housing performance against that, and you get a web diagram and a score really out of 5. So you have a good representative measure, quantitative measure of the performance of the design or the actual finished building. So when I applied the SBAT, there's quite a lot of detail. Again, in the paper, I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but what comes through very strongly is that the current specifications are very limited in detail. So they don't really address the issue of what happens in the building in terms of energy. And obviously, if there's a family there that's living 2 or 3 years, how do they cook? How do they light the building? The same thing for water and washing. What happens, where are the washing areas? How does that happen? Waste, there's no mention of that. Materials, again, it talks about a prefabricated steel frame. Increasingly, there are a whole range of other building technologies that could be used. And biocapacity, there's no kind of mention about how you make the site more comfortable in terms of environmental issues. So economic sustainability, again, the location really isn't addressed. And, what the research shows is that it's very important to link in emergency housing with the existing and previous communities so that the links are still strong. People can work where they worked before. And, how you address local economy so that perhaps, the building of those structures could be done by people within that community or the displaced people. So there's some way of earning a bit of revenue and really kind of getting back on your feet. Social sustainability, again, one of the key issues here is that the provision doesn't really mention a lot of the kind of social infrastructure that you'd expect in a community. So things like health, education, social cohesion. So again, it's important, I think, to address that so that you don't get the situation where you move people 50 kilometers from a lot of the networks and support that they used to have and records, etc. So basically what the paper then does is it says, given that situation, what are the aspects that could be modified or added to in terms of a specification. So there's some detail in the paper around where the site is, layouts, detail on water, sanitation, electricity, what's a simple, workable, sustainable electricity system for an emergency housing so that life can carry on, children can study at night, etc. A little bit on the detail, and there's some very interesting examples. So this particular one that I show at the top is from India, which is a kind of modular approach, which enables different layouts. And you can see here, there's a lot of thought that's gone into just providing, even if there are very small spaces, but actually providing for cooking, for sitting, for sleeping, for bathing and bathrooms. And I think that's very important, is that we need to kind of think through life in an emergency housing and in the settlement that's developed. So again, the specification goes into a little bit of detail for that. So again, the details, the types of materials, the construction, again, increasingly there's some very good bio-based materials that have very low embodied energy, can be produced locally, can create new entrepreneurs, new jobs. and looking at procurement. How do you procure locally so that, again, you support the local economy and enterprises that, you know, have obviously been impacted by their particular issue that has displaced people. So really coming to the end so that there's a bit of time for questions and discussion. So basically what the study does is it reviews the existing provisions for emergency housing in the Department of Human Settlements. And those provisions are fairly minimal. I think if there was a lot of capacity in provinces and in municipalities, that wouldn't be so bad because they may have their own locally developed versions and which they could then implement. The thing that that isn't the case in many municipalities and provincial departments is they tend to use the overarching specifications, and this, you know, there's not much time really to kind of put together new tenders, new specifications, good layouts, etc. So the argument this paper makes is that we need to put together more detail. We need to supplement the existing, and we need to update the existing so that we really address how people live in emergency housing and how can we make sure that it's as sustainable as possible. And that really is the purpose of one of the outputs, which is the outline specifications for emergency housing. And I think that's it presents a reasonable start. I think it's something that needs to be tested, refined, and it's again something that I think is quite an interesting research area and is not one that's going to go away. I think unfortunately, there's going to be increasing number of disasters related to flooding, fire, etc., because of climate change, just because of the era we're in currently. So that's really the paper. I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Thank you. And I'll put the slides up elsewhere.
I see that they'll be up on your website. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Emmanuel, you'll alert me if there are questions from the audience. I can't see that. Jeremy, thank you for an interesting paper. This issue of de-densification, I mean, for myself as someone that has advocated for and very much been an activist for density for a lot of my career, this discussion about de-densification since COVID started, haven't quite known how to go about addressing that. So this is a very interesting topic that you're working on, but also, I mean, this what you refer to as absolute minimum, those guidelines as not really ensuring anything of quality or anything that would be viable for in the long term. Perhaps you could tell us, is the intention that people would settle there for 2 or 3 years and then it develops into a proper settlement, or is the idea that they move on somewhere else?
Okay, thank you. I think we don't know, you know, because I think there are settlements that, you know, you go and look at in all countries. I mean, there are settlements, places in the UK where people were meant to have been 6 months and 10 years later, they're still there. And there are many in South Africa. So I think the issue is we don't really know. But what we do know is that, you know, people that have been affected by a major disaster, so something like flooding, it's very important that we enable them to kind of put their lives back together and get going again. And I think what that means is it means that there has to be some minimum standards that take into account how they live, how children go to school, where people work, how people cook, where they wash, etc. We can't just say, you know, there's a shed, you know, you go and put your life together. The argument that the paper's making is that sustainability is really about giving, a kind of fuller understanding of how people live and then supporting that. So the argument the paper would make is that we probably should be designing structures that could be used in the fairly long term. But if we go a modular route, it's fairly easy to design buildings that can be deconstructed and reassembled elsewhere. So, if you get moved into this house with this structure, and eventually a new site comes up elsewhere and you're happy with it, it works, why can't you take a lot of that structure and those building elements and reassemble them elsewhere into another house? So I think, and again, there's some quite good examples of that working, and then at least you avoid waste and cost of kind of rebuilding each time. So I think that's probably the best route, is to have a route which is modular, allows people to live comfortably for a couple of years at least. And if they then stay there, you upgrade the quality over time. If they move, quite a lot of the building elements can also be moved, deconstructed and assembled again.
Okay, someone is asking, have you actually designed, I see a set of guidelines, but I'm just trying to understand this person. Oh, it's Tori. Thanks, Tori. So have you designed models that include solar energy? I didn't understand that you actually designed models. I felt that you had set up an alternative or a more comprehensive framework, but did you actually design models? And did they include energy?
Yeah, so the specifications include energy. So they include, basic renewable energy systems so that you can have lighting at night, you can run a radio, run a TV. So basic aspects that now have become part of life, but also cooking as well. Obviously, how do you cook? It's an important issue to address. And
children being able to do their homework.
Yeah, exactly. Those sorts of things. So this particular paper doesn't design the building. I mean, I have done separate exercises. And really, I think the argument is that you need to test your specification against designs. And so there are some examples that I have worked up really to test the specification, and that's another paper.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think just for the person in the audience that asked that, and for you, I think for all of us, it's like we've gotten into the habit, like saying, okay, this project is sustainable in the sense that it has these kind of features in it, and this one isn't, or this architect or this company practices in this way and this one doesn't. When this should just become the norm. This should be how we should practice anyway. And I think the value of what you're presenting is we need emergency interventions, and you said that they will, these kind of crisis situations will increase in the future because of climate change, but we need to do them with a view for the long-term viability of the settlements we're creating. I also enjoyed how you linked this up in terms of the solutions improving local economies, and Ivan Turuk has recently written about that, and that's a very interesting point to make. There's so much more to say, but I think we need you to move on to your next paper.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. And if anyone else has any other questions, please, if we have a few minutes at the end, and for you as well, Jeremy, if there's something you really want to say, maybe at the end of the session, we might still have a minute or two to do that.
Okay, I'm just wanting to share the screen.
So Emmanuel, Jeremy is sharing his screen again, please.
Yes, please allow. You can just close this one and open the new screen. I think you're sharing the wrong screen, Jeremy.
Okay, let me try and change it.
Yeah, just change to the one with the slide presentation.
I think in this age of COVID, we should get used to Emmanuel putting time in our sessions for grappling with the technology.
Yeah. Share my screen. It's not showing up for some reason. It's
You have to stop sharing the current screen so that you can share the next one.
Maybe
okay.
Stop share and then try. We saw it and then it went.
Because we can see your WebEx screen, so.
Sorry? Stop sharing. Okay, I'm going to try that. Can you give me the link again? I think it's gone. Okay, here we go. All right. Can we see?
Yes,
yeah.
It's perfect now.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. The next presentation that I'm going to cover really is the issue of neighborhoods. One of the things that I'm going to talk about again is a little bit about COVID, because my argument in the paper is that neighborhoods have become even more important. And again, I use a tool that I've developed called the Built Environment Sustainability Tool. I'll talk about a particular neighborhood and then show how the tool can be used to analyze the existing and generate really some interventions, some proposed options that could be used really to improve the sustainability of the neighborhood. I'll talk about the findings as a result of the analysis of the existing and the proposed interventions, and then really make some conclusions about how sustainable neighborhoods can be developed. Really, the argument is that there may be some shortcuts. I think we have currently a huge amount of pressure to address a lot of issues quickly. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, climate change, and things aren't happening quickly enough. So really this paper is an attempt to say, are there synergistic things that can happen which affect many areas, so water, energy, jobs, etc. And really that's the essence of the paper. So first of all, I think the very interesting issue that's come through as a result of the pandemic is really some of the things in terms of the reduction in carbon emissions. So you can see there's been a huge reduction in surface transport, in a lot of the kind of aviation fuel, power consumption, etc. And what is interesting is that because people have stayed at home, because they've become more local, we actually have a far more efficient set of measures when we look at a lot of things like carbon emissions. So it's a very interesting data that's coming through. And you can see this very clearly in terms of global daily carbon emissions. So that's where we were just at the beginning of 2020, and we almost dropped 20%. That's a graph over the months. And what this shows is it shows that it is possible. And it makes a very strong argument for kind of local localization, local living, local working. And that's really the essence of the paper. What it also shows, unfortunately, is that there is likely to be a major impact in terms of poverty. So there was a very good progression downwards for the last 10 years. But the effect of the pandemic is that that's likely to increase. So again, there's a huge increase in pressure in terms of jobs, education, health, etc. So again, how do we address this at a neighborhood level? So the tool is this is a picture of the tool. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and the way it works is that you have an existing measure. You measure the neighborhood in terms of these criteria, and then you have a set of interventions. So you can have up to 6 interventions, and you can then measure the impact of these interventions on the existing, and you get a proposed, which is the improved performance. So you can see here the red graph is the existing, the blue is the improvement, and there's also a trajectory here that shows that improvement over time. So the idea really is that you measure where you are, and then you define the interventions to try and get full capability for sustainability. So a neighborhood that really is, in terms of these criteria, fully sustainable, which would be up here or would be the full screen. So it's quite an interesting tool, and basically the nice thing about the tool is that it's very well aligned with the SDGs. So if you take the 17 SDGs, you take the best criteria, you can see there's very strong alignment between the two. So the neighborhood, a lot of you may recognize this as I go through it, is this neighborhood outlined in red, fairly well defined, hills on one side, highway on 2 sides, and some social infrastructure around it. You can see a fairly typical Pretoria wealthy neighborhood, quite large houses, swimming pools, etc. One corner, which is quite interesting, is some commercial development. So there's shops, restaurants, offices that are developing. And what you can see is that naturally the corners, the edges of the neighborhood are becoming commercialized. There's commercial pressures, there's densification starting to happen, there's more jobs, more businesses being created because it's in a very good location. So the way this worked was that the first exercise was really to assess the neighborhood in terms of the types of current development and in terms of these criteria. So in the tool, you measure against these different areas, and what we found is really that there's insufficient density, limited renewable energy, limited passive environmental control, limited provision for mobility. You know, it's not a safe place to walk or cycle, particularly because there's no specific provision. Limited access to low ecological footprint products, and also limited services. So if you want to do things like banking, some types of banking, you've got to travel. Obviously, there's the use of the internet, so there's some provision locally. In terms of employment, as a employment density, in terms of the criteria, it's low, not much support for local enterprises. There's no schools locally, no secondary schools, primary schools, etc. Health, there's some facilities for exercise, but there's very limited facilities for things like clinics, etc. Biocapacity is good, is strong, because there's 2 quite large parks. One is a nature reserve, and the other is a park, and they are well used. There's no recycling, so again, no formal provision. What the tool measures is it measures the provision. So it measures the fact is the design, the characteristics of the neighborhood, is there provision in the neighborhood to support more sustainable living and working patterns. And that's what it's measuring. Is it easy to recycle because everything's in place, it works. And so really that's what it measures. And what we then proposed is 6 different interventions. We said, what if we put in an education hub with early childhood development, so a creche, a primary school, combined primary and secondary school, and a facility that could be used as adult education, make it multi-use so it could be used for lots of different facilities. And what you can see is that improved the score in that area, as you'd expect. Another intervention we wanted to test was the idea of a food hub. Again, locally produced, low ecological footprint food, so fresh fruit, vegetables, like a market. And again, some urban farming, again, on the site. So again, there's some improvement here. You can see that particular intervention improves the food performance. Work densification, so what this proposed was to take out quite a large residential area and densify this, and in the process require that the new businesses that came in, the new entrepreneurs that came in, were entrepreneurs that directly supported sustainability in the neighborhood. So that made increased access to sustainable products, sustainable services, etc. So that, again, it would have a multi-impact effect. And you can see that that's happened here, is that goods has gone up, services has gone up, health has gone up, etc. So this is an interesting one because it's created multiple impacts. Residential densification, so this again took out a block of residential and increased the densities to meet really sustainability density requirements. And again, some aspects were improved. This one looked at an energy microgrid. So this looked at how you'd use the rooftops and available spaces to create a microgrid and increase the self-sufficiency of the neighborhood in terms of energy and renewable energy. So the major impacts. Recycling, this was about setting up a local recycling scheme and recycling pretty much 100% of the waste on site and linking it up to recycling contractors. So again, as you'd expect, a major improvement in terms of waste. So if we put that all together, what you can see is that if we took the 6 interventions, we'd improve really the kind of best score from 1.24, which was very low, up to about 3.45. And we improve both ecological footprint, which is really the impacts in terms of consumption and production, and also human development capacity. So better access to jobs, better access to education, health. So the nature of these particular interventions seem to work quite well for both of those, both of the kind of social and economic.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Okay, I'm just about finished. So, okay, so the last slide is really shows the impacts. So these are the 6 interventions. These are the number of areas impacted, and then this is the contribution to the improvement. And what's interesting here is that the work densification really has made by far the best improvement in terms of capability for sustainability. And these other ones are lower. These are quite small scale interventions. They don't affect the whole neighborhood, and that's why perhaps they have low impact. So just to summarize, so there's a bit of time for questions. What can we learn from this study? The findings suggest the following key issues. The first thing is that if we design interventions to really address everyday requirements, so we need to access goods, we need to access services every day for normal life. And if we can create a lot of those locally, we have many knock-on advantages. We can create local economic activity, local employment, and we reduce the requirement for travel, cars, carbon emissions. The second one is that if we can think through how the development works, if we can proactively structure the development through conditional requirements, so we state that a development needs to include X and Y in order to meet and address a gap in that neighborhood, we can make a big difference quickly. Very important to create local employment and enterprises. Again, each intervention we look at Is it possible to create, local jobs, new enterprises, etc.? Where we invest in new infrastructure, such as a school, can we make it multi-use so that they can be double, triple use? It can be used in the evenings, weekends, etc. And then the last one is really this issue of local governance, is that our current systems don't work very well because often the facilities may be unaffordable or not responsive to local needs. And so the argument here is that we need to make a lot of the facilities within a neighborhood governed by people who live there, so that they're really responsive and they work in terms of addressing things like accessibility and affordability. Good, thank you. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really hate to interrupt anyone, especially when the topic interests me so much. So please forgive me for that. But for the other speakers, just let us try to stick to the 12 minutes. I really enjoy what you're trying to do, Jeremy. You're taking concepts in policy documents, in various kind of agendas and so on. You're making it measurable. I have some questions, but I'm going to keep it to the end. And I see another question there about the commercial viability and the worldwide applications of this. So, Jeremy, I'm going to keep track of these questions. And I'll definitely, I just want to say, I'll definitely be referring to this for my own work on spatial transformation. So I have a lot to say about it. But let's move on to our next speaker. Emmanuel, if you can help our next speaker. So we will get back to having a conversation at the end. Our next.
Yes, if you can stop sharing.
Yes, Jeremy, please stop sharing your screen. So
okay, there we go.
There is a question from Tony. I sent it to the chat.
Yes, I saw the questions. I'm not ignoring the questions. We will get to them. And I have a whole list of comments on Jeremy's paper. I'm hoping that I can get to all of that at the end. So we need to now give the screen over to Vincent.
Okay, I'll do that, Prof, just now.
For everyone that's not speaking, please remember to keep your mics on mute. Yeah.
Okay, Vincent, you are able to now share your screen. We will present. Thanks.
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Vincent can be able now to share his screen. He's a presenter.
Okay, Vincent, please share that. And Jeremy, maybe while Vincent is setting up his screen, could you just respond to this? First of all, this person says the BEST tool is awesome. Is it commercially available worldwide?
Okay, yes, I think you can hear me. The BEST tool is available. The way we've developed it is really kind of applying it locally. Different versions, earlier versions have been used in Brazil, Norway, etc. So I think the best way of just finding out more is contact me. I've put my Gmail account on the Q&A. So feel free to get in touch, and yeah, thank you for the interest.
Wonderful. Vincent, we're still not seeing your screen. Vincent, could you please unmute?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now, but we're not seeing your screen. Vincent, please speak to us so at least we know you're trying to set up.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying. You can see it now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Did you find the share button? Now we can see it.
You are seeing the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to stick very strictly to 12 minutes because of time, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You may proceed.
Okay, good afternoon, members. I'm Wetanda Vincent, and I'm here to present you a paper entitled Improved Gray Models in Vehicular CO2 Emission Modeling and Forecasting to Decarbonize Urban Areas Sustainable Environment. My supervisors are Dr. Kiato, Professor Hinga, and Professor Oya. The outline of this presentation is as follows: abstract, keywords and introduction, research issue, rationale and theme, literature review, research purpose and approach, gray model and method of least squares, proposed GM's precision improvement techniques, measuring accuracy improvement, modeling and forecasting data sets, vehicular CO2 emission forecasting, modeling and forecasting results, and error evaluation, conclusion, application, and finally, references. Abstract and keywords. Global warming is one of the contentious environmental issues mainly caused by carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. Air pollution by CO2 emission from the transport sector is an issue in contemporary society. Modeling and forecasting of CO2 emissions constitute a vital step towards clean, sustainable transport and better public health. In this paper, we propose two improved gray models, namely the grouped gray model, GGM, and the modified initial condition gray model, MIC-GM, for modeling and forecasting CO2 emissions as a method of decarbonizing our cities and improving air quality. The results validate our claim that the GGM has excellent accuracy and hence is acceptable in CO2 emission modeling and forecasting. These results could be implemented in intelligent transportation systems to proactively forecast CO2 emissions, and this can be important in decision-making to decarbonize urban areas and develop clean, sustainable transportation systems across the world, thereby curtailing harmful climate change and air pollution. Our keywords include clean and sustainable transport, CO2 emission, among others. Introduction: global warming, climate change, and acid rain are among the most contentious issues caused by emissions of greenhouse gases, such as CO2 emission into the atmosphere, as given by AMD 2016. Road transport emits 73% of the European Union transport sector's emissions, and in the United States, transportation is a major emitter of greenhouse gases. To achieve a low carbon society, modeling and forecasting of CO2 emission is important in aiding planners to set policies and measures to enhance sustainable urban transport. High quality and accurate CO2 emission data can be valuable and reliable in making decisions in the transport sector to mitigate environmental pollution. Therefore, in this paper, we propose accuracy improved gray models for modeling and forecasting CO2 emissions. Our research issues are: motorized transport is a major source of air pollution, as we can see from figure 1, which is traffic congestion in Nairobi City, Kenya, resulting to CO2 emission, as shown in figure 2. This has adverse effects on human health and the ecosystem as a whole, as given by AMD 2016. To achieve all carbon society, we propose accuracy improved gray models for modeling and forecasting CO2 emissions. Rationale and research team. Our rationale is, as populations and economies of the world continue to grow, it is a challenge to handle CO2 emissions and global warming. This calls for modeling and forecasting of CO2 emission to generate high quality and accurate CO2 emission data for aiding planners to set policies and measures to mitigate environmental pollution. Our team include to improve the accuracy of the original gray model by data grouping technique and modification of initial condition. 2, to model and forecast CO2 emission by these improved gray models. Literature review. The grade system theory was introduced in 1982 by Deng, as given by Deng 1989. The term gray means poor, incomplete, and uncertain. It has been applied in various fields such as ecology, economy, among others, to analyze, estimate, forecast, and model gray systems. GM's accuracy improvement in the past has been based on optimizing the initial condition, modification of the background value, as given by Madi and Mohammed 2017. Improved error as given by Jiang Jun et al. 2011. In our research, we introduce a new approach, that is the data grouping technique, and compare it with optimization of the initial condition in improving GM's forecasting accuracy. In the past, CO2 emissions has been predicted and forecasted based on multiple linear regression analysis as given by Lipao et al. 2017 and the co-integration approach by Lee et al. 2018. Autoregressive integrated moving average as given by Nyoni and Mutoni 2019. These methods are complex in their analysis and require huge amounts of data to forecast CO2 emissions. Thus, we propose a simple and less data requiring approach in modeling and forecasting CO2 emissions. This is the GM, that's the gray model, whose accuracy is improved in this paper by data grouping technique and modified initial condition. Research purpose and approach. Our goal is to improve GM's precision in vehicular CO2 emission modeling and forecasting, which can find application in decarbonizing urban areas. To achieve this, CO2 emission data of Table 1 was utilized. This data was given by Ketanda, Oya, and Kubo 2017. And this is our Table 1, which consists of data from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. of the day and a total of 25 data points. We employ data grouping technique and modification of the initial condition to improve the original gray model's forecasting accuracy. Consequently, we established grouped gray model denoted as GGM and modified initial condition gray model given as MIC-GM. The gray model, let's review the gray model, is a single variable first order differential equation based on gray system theory, and it consists of accumulated generating operation, AGO, inverse accumulated generating operation, IAGO, and mean value generating operation, MGO. For example, given observations as in equation 1, the AGO is generated by equation 2, and the gray differential equation is well known and given by equation 3, where A is developing coefficient, P is gray control coefficient, and X1 of T is background gray value at time sample T. Equation 3 has a well-known solution given by equation 4. Therefore, the predicted value based on AGO series is given by equation 5. From equation 5, the IAGO is generated as in equation 6, where x bar 0 of k plus 1 is the predicted value of x0 of equation 1. And from equations 1 and 2, we have the gray differential model given by equation 7. Method of least squares. From this method, it is known that parameters A and B are best estimated by equation 8, where A data matrix and Y measured vector are determined in gray modeling by equation 9, where Z1 of K is the MGO and is given by equation 9. Now, proposed GM's precision improvement techniques, our techniques in improving the gray model's precision. First, we proposed the data grouping technique, and in this paper, we adopted the strong grouping technique because it is the most accurate technique as given by Getanda, Oya, and Kubo 2017. And as shown in figure 3, we show how we group 10 data points in groups of 4s, and as we have just said, grouping in 4s is the most grouping accurate. Secondly, we use the modification of the initial condition, and as given in Madi and Mohammed 2017, it's accomplished as follows. From equation 6, the restored value of the original gray model sequence can be given by equation 11. And substituting equation 5 in 11, we obtain equation 12. Letting C, that is the initial condition of the original gray model, to be expressed by equation 13, so that equation 12 becomes equation 14, and therefore from the discrete form of equation 5 we have equation 15. By applying IAGO equation 15, the restored value of the raw data is given by equation 16. minimizing the sum of the squared error from the predicted, that is the restored values, we can minimize, we can optimize the initial condition. Therefore, a function C is constructed as in question 17. And substituting question 16 in 17, we differentiating it with respect to C and letting the derivative be equal to 0, then the optimized C is given by question 18. Now, computation of the restored values is by question 16 with optimized C of equation 18. Measuring accuracy improvement. We measured our accuracy improvement in the GM's model by mean absolute error, mean absolute percentage deviation, error indicators given by equations 19 and equation 20. Modeling and forecasting data sets. We subdivided the CO2 emissions data of table 1 into modeling data set for estimating.
Vincent, you have 1 more minute to complete.
Forecasting data set for evaluating. And we did this as in figure 4, where the first 22 data points were used for modeling, the last 3 points for forecasting, and the fecular emission forecasting. Generally, ray forecasting involves extrapolating equation 5 by equation 16. Then we forecast the 3 points ahead to evaluate the performance of the proposed gray models. Fecular CO2 emission modeling results. We performed RO, MGO, IRO on the modeling data set by equations 10, 6, and 2, and trained the models. We show the results in figure 5 to 7. Figure 5 shows the results for CO2 emission by the original gray model. The first 2 curves, actual and data predicted. Their difference, that is the error, is shown as rescue CO2 emission curve. Then in figure 6, we have the modification of the initial condition, which slightly improves original gray model's fitting accuracy, as we can see from the rescue curve. Then
Vincent, are you almost done because your time is up?
Okay,
How many more slides do you have?
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Data grouping. Then we have data grouping. We see the residue curve is approaching 0, meaning that it is more accurate than the rest. Then forecasting, we have this table summarizing the forecasting results, and from their evaluation, we can see that GGM has high fitting accuracy with reasonable forecasting accuracy. In conclusion, we have modified the original gray model for forecasting, and it can find we have created 2 models, MIC and GGM, and this can find application in decarbonizing the road transport by incorporating the GGM in the intelligent transportation systems. And finally, these are our references, and I wish to thank you so much for your attention. Any question? Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is way beyond my area of expertise, but I'm hoping that my colleagues in the organizing committee and those attendees will also participate in this. Emmanuel, I would like to suggest that while I'm talking, we immediately assist our next speaker to set up. I'm just looking.
Okay, Prof.
It's actually, I should be presenting Akram Khalifa. You know what? I'll leave Akram Khalifa for last because it's a video. Vian, hello.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. Could you please, so Vincent, you can stop sharing your screen, and Vian, Emmanuel will help you set up. As I said, this is not my area of expertise, but I can see that you're trying to reduce vehicular emissions, and there's also a link in a way in terms of improving the quality of the environment in urban areas and achieving sustainable environments. So what I have also suggested in the chat is that to be able to better manage time, could people type their questions in the chat, and then maybe we could also get answers to those questions in the chat. So Vincent, please bear with us. We're going to take care of that in that way. So Jeremy, I don't know if you've noticed, I've already asked you a question in the chat. It would be great if people could create a conversation in the chat area. Does everyone see my question in the chat? I'm just testing it. Jeremy, can you see it?
Yes, I can. I'll answer them.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm just encouraging everyone to do that, and my colleagues in engineering who can respond and comment on Vincent's paper, please feel free to do so in the chat. Vian, we can see your screen. Welcome. I'm handing it to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so my name is Vian. I'm a recent graduate from TUT's MArch program. And this is basically research from this paper has come from the research that was done during the course of such program. So this paper really looks at the roles between a client and an architect, and how it can be defined in terms of where the creative authority lies. So to do so, we're looking at an architectural project really as an organization with set relationships in it, where we are focusing on the architect as a professional who holds the expert knowledge within the relationship, and then the client who is redefined both as the funder and the user, who has the self-knowledge and will ultimately use the building. So from that, we can define three kinds of authorship. So the first kind is a director authorship, which we borrow from Jonathan Hill's Actions of Architecture. The second is facilitator, which we borrow from Jeremy Till's book. And then we're using these as kind of polar sides to then define a curator architect, which we will then define further. Okay. So the director architect is effectively an architect where within the client-architect relationship, the architect takes sole creative authority. The client is effectively turned into an actor within the architecture. And this is what, in this kind of relationship, is what Denise Scott Brown kind of caricatured of modern architects, saying that people don't really know what they want. It's up for architects to tell people what they should want. One of this also comes from movements, cultural movements and intellectual shifts in early modernism, both in the arts and technology, which look to abstract people and things, so turning into ideas, so that architects taking on this kind of ideology needn't really work with people. We only really need to work with ideas of people, which makes them much more malleable in terms of what they do within the architecture. And then this was exacerbated by another shift, which is technological, with mass manufacturing and so on, which also gave the architect much more technical expertise, which then also skewed the authority within the relationship. So one of the projects that really exemplifies such a relationship is Peter Eisenman's House 6. And this was in 1974. This is a holiday home for them, and they kind of give Eisenman creative license to do whatever he wanted. So what he set out to do was to, in the typical form follows function, he really set form against function. And in the house, he designed it to specifically impede the client's living. So with a column that goes straight through the dining room table, and in this picture, as you can see, is their bedroom that was split in two, forcing them to sleep in two separate beds, which was very not part of their custom. And then it took the clients about 15 years to actually rectify the issue they had with the design, and actually just buy something to bridge the split. So what actually happens in that kind of relationship is that the architect takes over any creative input from the client and in many ways disregards it and really treats the architectural project as their own, as beyond the client. Now that also happens a lot in community projects where, because of the amount of opinions and amount of things that need to be addressed, overwhelms the creative designers. They tend to rely on much more easily quantifiable aspects such as economics or regulations and so on. So because of that, there was a movement in the 1970s that looked to completely change the way in which these kinds of projects were community projects were undertaken by removing the authority from the architect completely. So this was the design method movement, and they really sought to look at how technology can enable the clients to design their own architecture. So in this, the architect really is a technical facilitator for the project, and all the creative authority lies within the client. So if we coincidentally, this is The Sims, which is a popular computer game, and it effectively exemplifies everything that the design method movement went for. It's a simple tool. It's for the laypersons to use and design whatever they want, but it also has its flaws. It is very rudimentary and is very restrictive, and even a good designer will struggle to create good architecture within this tool, and which ultimately led to the failure of this movement because clients really struggle to translate what they want into good architecture. So this brings us really to a curator-architect kind of relationship, which is where the creative authority is shared between the architect and the client. So to do this, we need to address two fundamental flaws that occur within the project. And the first is a failure of communication between the client and the architect, which we will now see goes much deeper than just not sending emails. And the other is a skewed authority between the two actors. So you have, let me actually, yes. Okay, so between failure to express and skewed authority, we have an issue in terms of how the creative authority is then shared between the two. So we have defined the client as being the holder of self-knowledge, but what we find is that the ability of a client to actually express themselves is marred because quite often words really do fail when you want to express your wants or your needs or your expectations about something. And then that is exacerbated in the presence of a skewed authority where the architect has the technical authority and technical expertise, and the client is kind of funder. And these two kind of create two poles of authority within the relationship, but these don't really negate each other because it just creates quite a strained relationship. So as a way to mitigate this, we need to look at how clients express themselves and how this authority can be shifted. So the one is we need to understand that what a client expresses isn't necessarily what they mean. So there was a study by Hagarian and Chini who looked at indirect ways of communication, so through metaphor, as a means of gaining a deeper essence to what someone says. So they looked at storytelling within organizations, and we can look at this same kind of use of indirect communication as a way of looking, or as a way of accessing a client's tacit knowledge that they fail to really express through words. And then another one is the mediums of communication. So we typically used to drawings and models through as communication between architects and clients. But these are very much reserved within the authority of the architect. And clients don't necessarily always feel free to engage with these mediums themselves. So when combining these, an indirect way of communicating with media, what we actually get is art therapy, which...
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You have one more minute.
Yes. Okay, thanks. And art therapy is effectively a way it's used to use drawings and models as a way of gaining to the essence of what the client is trying to communicate. So this is a project. This is House Wafer. This is a project between Jeremy Wafer, who's an artist, and Craig McClanagan, who's an architect. And what set this project apart is that the use of alternative media. So it was a house that was designed for the artist. And as a starting point, the artist sent a project that he had done, which is the Red House, in 2009. And then through the communication between the artist and the architect, they exchanged these kind of works and drawings and the interpretation of those. The point of it was really to get to the essence of what the architecture really is without necessarily defining its economic or physical aspects, which the architect has a bit more authority on. So once you have the essence of the architecture, it's easier for the architect to then define the technical aspects. So, well, not all clients are artists. So for a curator architect, it means that they need to step into a more guidance role. So as the curator architect guides the client through the creative process, the client has buy-in in the architect's medium and authority. Clients and architects have more languages to communicate. And because of the increased understanding between the architect and the client, the better architecture is created and the architecture is better appreciated. And then what is key about such a process is by making it meaningful in its own right. So where such a co-authorship relationship is made meaningful, the architecture also gains meaning, and the public's increased engagement in the architecture improves the value of good architecture, and so it increases also the need of good architecture. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vian. There's so much to discuss in this paper. I'm going to ask in the meantime that Emmanuel helps Danyan set up. So Danyan, you will be next. Danyan, can you hear me?
Perfectly, Prof.
Wonderful. So you can set up. Vian, what you're presenting is quite complex in the sense it's about shifting authority, it's about professionalism, issues of participation, the service that we deliver as professionals, and who holds knowledge and expertise. So it's actually an incredibly complex topic that you're handling. If I'm not mistaken, you was the word power mentioned in your presentation or paper?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's because I think there's a lot of issues around power, and maybe in taking your research further, you could explore concepts of power and professionalism. I think that would be incredibly meaningful. So I'm asking the audience, Damian, are you being assisted?
Yeah, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
You can share screen is allowed now.
So I really think that you can take these concepts further, Vian, in further explorations. And I think the issue of power, and I myself started writing something and never really got to it, in all of the kind of conflicts and disputes that emerged in our own environment here with our regulatory authorities and the membership. And a lot of it had to do with issues around power. And there's a lot of writings on professionalism and dynamics that you could refer to. Please, everyone, do write comments in the chat. We're moving on to Dr. Damian. Dr. Damian, I'm so sorry, yesterday I referred to you as Mr. Forgive that. And Damian, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Prof. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are. You are. You can just put your presentation on presentation mode so that we get it larger on the screen.
Good everyone. I'll be presenting on the development of the extinguishing robot. My name is Dr. Ilesomi Daniel from the Department of Tuani University of Technology, Pretoria, here in South Africa. This is the outline of the presentation. I have the introduction, the objective and the approach, the novelties and significance, review, materials and methods, results and discussion, as well as recommendations and conclusion. Now I go to the introduction.
Damian, your voice is not so good. Could you tweak something and make it better? Could you try again, please?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Is it better now?
Better. That's better.
Thank you. Robotic solutions application and firefighting.
No, you're breaking up for some reason. So whatever you did initially, do it again. Were you closer to your mic, or you're breaking up?
Yeah. I will go to introduction. I hope that the audio quality will be better now.
It is better. Please proceed.
Thank you, Prof. Robotic solution
Dr. Daniel, your audio is still showing problems. I don't know if it's your system or what.
I suspect maybe the challenge is probably is from the system.
I don't know if you can change your system. Maybe you can prioritize someone else to present. Prof, I don't know if you can try to do that so that we can improve this experience.
Okay. Okay, maybe you can give me a few minutes to get another system for the presentation. And I give you minutes to do that. Hello?
Prof, I don't know if you can attend to this.
I'm not sure what to do. I'm just not hearing the voice clearly. So what did Danyan suggest?
I'm trying to suggest that he prepares maybe a different system to present from. In the meantime, we can allow the next presenter.
Oh, okay. Then let me do that. Then let me play Akram's video.
Okay.
So you can give me the opportunity to
I think you can share, Prof. Dr. Daniel, can you just, in the meantime, improve your system so that we can have a better experience with you?
I'm not seeing an option to share.
Okay, let me just attempt to, yes, can you now type? If it's now possible.
Yep, it's possible now.
Thanks.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my presentation of my paper titled Analytical Review of Technology Transfer in Construction in Developing Countries, which is handling the context of Sudan. My name is Akram Ahmed Al-Khalifa. I am an assistant professor at the University of Khartoum, the Faculty of Architecture. So let's start. First of all, the main purpose of this presentation is to show the main factors that affect the success and the difficulties that face the application of technology transfer in the housing sector and the adoption of appropriate technologies for housing in general. The main purpose of that is to try to propose some kind of guidelines or solutions to help in that adoption of technology transfer as a way of solving the problem of upgrading shelter for the vulnerable people as the main focus of my research. This will be definitely first through the review of some of the case studies that I believe are providing some sort of good example of technology transfer in the adoption of building technologies, the adoption of some materials in the country of Sudan. So these animations will help in solving some of the problems of the vulnerable people who are facing continuous problems due to the usage of materials that are not durable, that are not sustainable, that are not standing in front of the context of the country or might be responding well to the environmental and climatological context in general. The case studies that I review, I will just give very few examples that show some of the initiative in producing and applying innovative materials and technologies for low-cost housing. These projects are initiated and managed. Some of them are by institutions, and some are managed and developed by individuals who are interested in the field of construction and building materials development in general. And most of the projects are owned by either the government or some of the donors who are helping the country in solving the housing problems. One of these examples is the timberless house in northern Darfur in the city of Al-Fashir. This project was initiated by Practical Action, an international NGO, which worked on the capacity building of the local people in the area to help them building their own houses through the usage of local materials that are durable instead of using wood, which was the main material that is adopted by the target group. So this was one of the projects that helped the community raising its capacity and also disseminating construction techniques that will help them build and develop their houses, as well as get some kind of sort of skills that allows them for income generation. Another example is also the ferro cement roof, which has been introduced and adopted by many enablers for technologies, because roof usually is one of the challenges that is facing the construction industry in Sudan due to the high cost associated with the durable materials like the reinforced concrete or the steel roof and so on. So the ferro cement is believed to be one of the options that many actors believe will suit the country, and some projects were successful in this in the introduction of the technology, but the dissemination remains a big challenge, and we will come to this later in this presentation. Another example is the Swedish roof, which is based on the use of bricks on metal mesh. Due to the thermal properties of brick, it's believed that it works very well, and such a roof has higher potentials in terms of thermal performance when it's compared to concrete or even to the ferro cement. However, due to the physical properties, it's not possible to use it for multi floors or higher loads, that as its real capacity is not that high. For the walls, there has been so many materials that are introduced. One of them is the compressed soil blocks and the stabilized soil blocks, and this is one of the examples. It's a school in Khartoum, which has been built in the 80s as a pilot project for the introduction of the compressed soil blocks. The project was funded by the UN Habitat, and it was studied and applied by the Building Roads and Research Institute and at the University of Khartoum. And recently, stabilized soil blocks were introduced, and this in specific is the interlocking stabilized soil blocks, which was produced from South Africa. This kind of technology doesn't need any sort of mortar. It's just by interlocking the blocks, and so many projects were developed and introduced, like in Eastern Sudan, in Western Sudan, in Niala, and so many places in Central Sudan as well. So after reviewing some of these attempts, arise a question which tells, were these examples effective in transferring the technologies or introducing them to be part of the construction industry in Sudan? And the simple answer is no. These technologies were very successful technically. However, it wasn't evident that it has been widely adopted in the country. And if we really want to judge the successful transference of the technology, we have to think about how people adopt it on a wider scale, and whether it's adapted to the current conditions of the country or the context that in which it's applied and so on. So many of these technologies remain like in the scope of pilot projects, but it's not widely adopted in the industry. And in our research, we try to come up with some, or to study the reasons behind the way that could enhance the transfer of this technology, and the reasons that hinder it's the development of successful transfer of these technologies. On the top of the factors comes the lack of government support in terms of funds and policies. The government doesn't have any sort of specific policies that enhance the transfer of technologies in construction. Followed by that is the low investment in training, education, and research. And apparently, this is because the resources that the universities and research institutes is not enough to cover the activities that are needed for the study or the dissemination and the diffusion of successful technologies. Followed by that also the lack of scientific and technological infrastructure and lack of professional bodies that might help in the screening and the diffusion of technologies along with the assessment of these technologies. Based on that, we tried to develop a model that shows the interrelationship between these factors and to some extent the causality relationship between them. We tried to divide them into 5 levels, starting from the primary variables, ending up with the end result, which is the ineffective way of transferring the technology. And the higher the parameters, the stronger the relationship is. So we believe that by studying these factors further, we could develop some sort of recommendations that will help in the adoption of the technology transfer as a way of solving the housing problems in the country, along with the construction industry in general. On the top of these recommendations come establishment of a central agency that will help screening, testing, and evaluating new technologies that are believed to be useful or applicable, yet institutional support is needed. So this is one of the steps that could be done through the government, and to establish criteria to determine the most appropriate technologies and to help assessing and judging these technologies, and to support the research centers and higher education institutes through collaborative research that will help in the dissemination of knowledge and the diffusion of successful technologies. This is a very, very quick review of the paper content and the topic that we try to hand in our paper. I hope that you have enjoyed the presentation, and thank you for listening and for your time. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks to Akram, who took the time to record this for us. I'm trying to unshare my screen, so I don't know how to do it. Sorry, Emmanuel, I'm struggling here.
Yes, Prof. You're struggling with?
I'm trying to get out of share. Oh, yes, there, I found it.
Thank you.
Is the screen now unshared?
We can still see your screen.
I don't know why.
Just go when you press to share, so that you press that to unshare the screen.
I am struggling. Sorry.
Let me just try from my side if I can.
Yes, you.
Get to the dynamics presenter so that he is able to share, and you won't be sharing.
Now that's working. Yes,
Yeah.
so, thank you to Akram for an excellent overview of alternative technologies, and I got concerned towards the middle of the presentation that he wasn't addressing the social acceptance applications, but then it went on to really explore that quite rigorously. in terms of the problems with technology transfer and actually making some proposals. So while Danyan is setting up, and I hope Danyan has sorted out his technical issues, I just want to say to everyone, if there are any comments or questions. I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet. Emmanuel, if from your side you're seeing any questions or comments, alert me to them. But the issues that Akram is raising, or they're very similar to issues here. I remember going to a community where there were these alternative buildings built out of alternative materials, and the residents would knock on the walls and say, no, we want something that sounds and feels like a brick wall. So perhaps it's a global thing. People are very conservative when it comes to working with alternative technologies in buildings and in homes specifically. I'm still not seeing Danyan's screen, Emmanuel.
Yes, Dr. Danyan is allowed to share screen, and just type to share screen, you will be able to do so. Dr. Danyan, are you there? Hello, Dr. Danyan. Can you kindly share your screen?
Emmanuel, I'm also not seeing, you said there was a question, I'm not seeing it, so I just need support with that, please, because while Danyan is setting up, we could also address some of the questions that arise, but I'm not seeing anything.
Let me just try. Dr. Danyan, you are muted.
Sorry?
There is a question there by Tony. I don't know if you would address that. The previous presentation prior to yours, prior to the video that you played.
I'm not seeing any questions. Could you just
let me send it directly to you so that
send them directly to me, because I'm not seeing anything.
okay.
Yeah, I'm actually not seeing at all. So, Danyan, you really need to get your presentation. Danyan, I'm not seeing you and I'm not hearing you. Emmanuel, are you there?
I've sent you the question, Prof. I will be trying to schedule it.
Okay, so we have a you sent me a question. I'm seeing it now, but I actually don't know who it's directed to.
It was
From whom is it and who it's directed to?
Before the video that you presented.
Is it related to the video?
No, before the video, not related to the video, the presentation before the video.
Okay. Okay, so probably this where it says the meeting of the minds is any model that provides client with many pictures to facilitate this. Vian, would you be able to respond to this?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So you have a comment here from someone. The meeting of the minds is always a challenge. Is there any model that provides the client with many pictures to facilitate this? I guess to facilitate the meeting of the minds?
I'm not pretty sure I understand. Is it in terms of like giving several options and then?
That's how I'm understanding it. Is it a question of providing options?
I don't really think so, because it still falls within the director architect, which kind of plays the client as a role player within the architecture, but not necessarily within the making of the architecture. So even though it makes that process easier, it doesn't really make the client a co-author in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. So to whoever who posted that question, I agree with Vian that if you're giving options, the architect still has control over those options. It's not really handing over control to the client. Yes, so I see Danyan has been able to share his screen. Danyan, we need to go quite fast. We have exactly 12 minutes left, so please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. I apologize for the technical difficulties resulting from my system audio quality. Now I'm back on track. The title of my presentation is Development of a Fire Detecting and Extinguishing Robot. I hope I'm audible enough this time around.
You are wide, you are very clear, loud and clear.
Thank you, Prof. So this is
we need to move to the presentation, please.
So this is the outline of the presentation, and I have the introduction, the objective and the approach, novelties and significance, the literature review, materials and methods, result and discussion, recommendation and conclusion. Now I go to the introduction. Robotic solution find application in firefighting operations, and then particularly this work develops a robot that is suited for detecting and extinguishing fire. The robot operates independently with obstacle avoiding capabilities, and at the same time, it is capable of detecting, tracking, and extinguishing flame. A robot can be designed or controlled from a distance, which means firefighting and rescue activities could be executed without putting the firefighter at risk through the use of robotic technology. Now to the background to the study, the need for an integrated system of mechanical and electrical component with effective control system for firefighting brought about this particular work, and the work discusses the design, fabrication, as well as performance evaluation of a prototype robot for firefighting. So the objective is to design and fabricate a robot for firefighting and to evaluate the performance. Carry out some literature review and a feasibility study, and from there, designed, having identified the design requirements and the assembly as well as the performance evaluation of the work was carried out. Robotic solution finds useful application in dangerous and hazardous environment, as well as in difficult to reach areas. Therefore, firefighting operation is important. It's an important but dangerous service, which can result in destruction of properties, permanent disability, as well as the death of personnel if not efficiently deployed. However, the associated risk can be mitigated with the development of a robot with suitable capabilities for fighting firefighting operation. And some of the design requirements for this work speaks to the fact that the robot must be able to provide quick and emergency response with the ability to get to the scene of the fire and extinguish it quickly. Since technology now allows for more efficient and effective means of firefighting, the robots can be employed with the use of a microcontroller designed to accept inputs from a set of electric signals and give output in response to the programmed command. This literature survey presents the related work that have been carried out in terms of development of a robot for firefighting operation, and we can see the contribution to knowledge as well as the limitation of the study. Some of them are limited to the development of semi-autonomous systems, and in some design issues as well as performance evaluations were not sufficiently highlighted. So particularly, the novelties of this work speaks to the fact that the system is easily configured with GPS, the Global Positioning System capabilities to some determined area. It has a regular probing capabilities that can make the detection of its current location easy to Android application. It has the ability to autonomously detect and extinguish fire. It is self-propelling with good navigation and control abilities, which makes it useful for firefighting operations in some areas, most especially hazardous, dangerous, and difficult to reach areas. So now to the methodology. The robot is built based on ATmega 328 microcontroller incorporated with infrared and ultrasound sensors for obstacle navigation, and at the front it has an infrared sensor to detect and avoid obstacle. We also have the central controller, which is the ATmega microcontroller with a motor drive that is used for the control of the motor. Specifically, the design comprises of 5 main modules. We talk about the master controller, the motor control, the proximity control, the fire detecting, and the extinguishing module. Each of the modules is associated with the appropriate sensors and actuators, and the information from various sensors, as well as the key hard drive elements, are processed through the central microcontroller. This is then interfaced with the master controller, which coordinates and schedules the activities to be carried out by the entire robot system. Particularly, the machine was incorporated with some cameras, and the control system, basically, just like I've said, comprises of the Arduino microcontroller, which control the two-geared motors alternatively in order to control the direction of the motor. And the programming was done using C program instruction fed into the microcontroller. We designed a robot that is able to independently identify and extinguish flame in less than 5 minutes and return to initial position in less than 2 minutes after carrying out the work. We designed a robot that is able to at least whose battery will be able to last for 30 minutes without a need for recharge. We designed a robot that can work for 30 seconds, whose fire extinguishing system can work for 30 seconds without the need for a refill, and that is capable of extinguishing fire that belong to the A, B, and C categories. We also incorporated the Raspberry Pi camera that is able to detect changes in the images captured in the lawn in which the robot is permitted to move, while the coordinate was used to create and detect the lawn boundary as well as to assist the robot in its directional movement in the predetermined area. Now to the performance evaluation of the robot. The robot demonstrated excellent navigation and obstacle avoidance abilities when approaching the flame source, and in line with the design requirements, it could keep a safe distance of about 0.5 to 1 meter, depending on the intensity of the flame. And the table we have there, it has the evaluation of the capacity of the robot in terms of the detection time, distance from flame, and the time for fire extinguishing. And from the table, it was observed that the detection time decreases with higher the intensity of the flame, the faster the detection time and the response of the robot. And this is due to the fact that the threshold value for the flame detection is first preset on the microcontroller, which forms the basis for the activation of the extinguishing module. On the other hand, the extinguishing time was first observed to increase as the intensity of the flame increases. The intensity of the candle flame, just like we can see, the flame source belong to the B category at a distance of 0.5 meter was fast less than the threshold for flame intensity. And hence, no basis for flame extinguishing. That's why we have 0 there. And the fuel in the kerosene stove was made to overflow before the extinguisher could detect the presence of flame after 20 seconds, thereby taking a total of 15 seconds before the flame could be extinguished.
Dr. Danya, I'm sorry to disturb you. You have 1 minute. You need to please. I see you're at results and discussion, but maybe you could just go a bit faster, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the result also obtained for the robot indicates that the robot will capture the images of the scene, for further control action, and at the same time avoid obstacle. It has the capability to make a 180-degree turn. Hence, this work provided a self-governing robot, an independent robot for fire fighting operation. Just like I've said, this is the image of the obstacle detection and avoidance capability, as well as the angle of turn for the robot. Data was used until the sensor data identified the movement of obstacle. So the figure here presents the pattern steps of the robot, and you could see that the steps of the robots are well related. And to the conclusion, the work was motivated by the desire to develop an autonomous system for fire detection and extinguishing, and the result obtained indicated that the robot can automatically identify and extinguish the robot in less than 5 minutes and return to its initial position in less than 2 minutes. Future work can consider the developed performance evaluation of other classes of fire flame that have been identified. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What an incredibly worthwhile project to work on, Dr. Danyan. Thank you so much. We are at the end of our time, but I'm going to give each one of the speakers just a little bit of time just to give us a final comment. For Vincent, you have a question here from someone just asking you what's the criteria you used in selecting the software to run your simulation. So you can use your little bit of time to just respond to that question, and then I'll give each one of the participants a chance to say a final word. Please proceed, Vincent. Vincent, are you here? I can see you. You need to unmute.
Yes, I'm present.
Yes, so someone is asking what's the criteria you used to select the software that you used for your simulation. Could you respond to them quickly?
The software for simulation of data or analyzing data.
Yeah, that's the question. They make the comment that you've used MATLAB. So yeah.
Okay. I used MATLAB to come up with my results, especially the graphs and so forth. I think MATLAB is easier to use and it's not too complicated, and it gives clean work. So I only selected MATLAB on the basis of its advantages and easy to use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vincent. I'll go on to Jeremy. A final word from you, Jeremy. Jeremy, are you here? I don't see Jeremy.
No, Jeremy has left. He left a message there, I think, to rush for something. I left his email.
Okay, Vian, do you have any final words?
Hi, yeah. I kind of just really want to note that some of the aspect of metaphor in terms of the curator architect has become more important as the research kind of develops. So it's very counterintuitive because you would think that to improve communication, you need to be more direct. But what we're finding is that through art therapy, through storytelling, and all of the other research that has been done in this field, the idea of indirect communication gains greater access to the essence of what someone tries to communicate. So yeah, that's really just my closing statement. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. And Dr. Danyan, you get the final speakers. Would you like to make a comment? I find your project incredibly important and valuable. Would you like to make a final comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. It is envisaged that this work will generate interest, in the public domain, as well as innovation in the field of robotics. While we work towards the practical and obtainable solution in order to save life and mitigate some of the challenges associated with property damage through fire outbreak, I suggest that well-meaning researchers and policymakers can, can take up the findings of this research and, from there, progress in the implementation of some of the findings. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's actually an incredibly good way to end this session. So a lot has been said, and some of it from the highly conceptual and metaphoric, as Vian mentioned, to the very kind of practical, technical applications. And I think that our role as researchers is to find ways to better communicate this to a wider audience. And we also, like Vian, I said, you can take this project and really work on it academically, theoretically, conceptually. But we also need to take these ideas to a much broader audience and take some of the technologies that Vincent and that Dr. Danyan have presented and be able to present them to a wider audience and for people to actually understand and adopt some of the principles that we're talking about. The same applies to the guidelines that Dr. Akram presented. On alternative technologies. So I think, Danyan, that comment is a really good comment to end this session with. And I want to thank everyone, and I hope that you progress in your research endeavors. And for the well-established researchers, thank you so much for participating. And for the new researchers, I hope this leads you on a long journey of exploration. Thank you so much.